All right, welcome. It is Wednesday, April 20th, and it's another glorious day in paradise. 81 degrees in Austin, Texas, clear skies. It's been looking that it's going to rain. We certainly need the rain, so excited about that. And we have a great guest today. But before we get rolling, I'm going to ask John Butler to give us some music.
Past that's sprinkled with so much blues. I got a few dreams that I'll never use. Fooled by my memory of things that used to be.
Brilliant, brilliant. John, how are you, sir?
I am doing fine in Austin, Texas. Lots of stuff going on in the world. The economy is still moving right along. I had a good friend who sold his company yesterday for $12 billion. So the world is right in his world. And the university is moving along. The pandemic is still having its effect, I think. And the big issue, I think, that when we look at everything is what's going on, as always, in Europe, with the war in Europe, and how we will create new business models coming out of the pandemic. I think it has affected and will affect in the future how we do business models. And Tony, one of the things we must say is we like to say on Digital RoundTable, everybody is moving to Texas, but they're not bringing their own electricity with them. So we're looking to you to do great things. Andres, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. We have our other moderator today is Linda Gasparelli. She is on the phone. Linda, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Great. Well,
how are you and where are you?
I'm actually in a car right now in Rhode Island. It's absolutely gorgeous here in far, far eastern Texas. And let me tell you, I absolutely agree with what Johnny said. There's so much uncertainty right now. And just looking at the impact of Russia's war on Ukraine and things that we've spoken about on this show before, the impact on food, the impact on supply chain, and just about everything you can imagine that you didn't imagine before. And what is going to happen with inflation? How is the government going to bring that inflation down? Is it going to be draconian as it was in the 1980s? Or is it going to be a much quieter bring down by the Fed? We're all looking to see what the Fed's going to do and waiting on tenterhooks because we're all feeling the impact in our pocketbooks.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said. We'll get into it in a few minutes. We have a great guest today, Tony Giroti. Tony, sir, how are you?
I am fabulous. I am calling from the sunny South Florida, the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area, and it's as sunny as it is in Austin, Texas. I might say 85 degrees and beautifully blue sky with wind, pleasant wind. It's beautiful. Right. It's like I'm looking at the palm trees right from outside my window, and it's a beautiful day.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for being with us. Happy that you are in a great bright spot. For those in the audience that don't know you, Tony Giroti is the chairman of the Energy Blockchain Consortium, and he will be with us today. Tony has a very nice career. In addition to his current role as chairman of the Energy Blockchain Consortium, he's also an angel investor with Tight Angel, a venture capitalist with 10X Venture Partners, and chairman of the NH Fund. Prior to EBC, Tony was chairman of the Bridge Energy Group, which was acquired by Accenture. And Tony and I actually met in his prior gig when he worked at MV Energy, where he was the chief architect there. Tony has a Bachelor of Engineering in Electrical Engineering from Delhi College of Engineering, a Master's of Science in Electrical and Computer Engineering from University of Massachusetts at Dartmouth, and a certificate in Sustainability Business Strategy from Harvard, and a certificate in Management and Leadership from MIT. Welcome, Tony, to the show.
Thank you. So nice to be here, John. and Linda, your company.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tony, real quick, you've been an entrepreneur. You worked in the utility industry for a long time before that. You are an engineer. You are a science guy. Tell us real quick from your current perspective of blockchain and what's happening in the world. What do you see COVID? Has COVID helped digitalization? Has COVID helped accelerate blockchain adoption or not? And what does 2022 look like?
Yeah, that's a great opening, Andreas. And the way I see it is that blockchain has caught a lot of momentum now. I think we have both type of applications of blockchain. The obvious applications are the crypto applications like the Bitcoin, Ethereum. But I think during the time of COVID, a blockchain hit some inflection point, enterprise blockchain as well. So, which means that blockchain for cryptocurrency, but blockchain has got attention of enterprises, and now blockchain is starting to be used very aggressively in actually most of the financial institutions, the big names. It's being used actively in the insurance industry, the healthcare industry. So we've reached an inflection point in 2021, and blockchain is now being adopted as a very natural evolutionary technology to implement enterprise applications. So that's about the blockchain. We'll talk about that more later. But I think from a COVID perspective, we've all been locked into our own shells for a couple of years now. There are two changes that I'm seeing evident. Number one is the future of work, right? We are all thinking about a hybrid model or a model where we are 3 days in the office, 2 days back home. But this whole future of work has changed the workplace. It has also changed the work and the work. So in other words, you and I, if you ask the CEO of a company, what is your total strength of the workforce, he or she will tell you, well, I have 500 employees or 1,000 employees. That is no longer valid. It's not just the employees, but it's also the gig workers, the part-time workers. So it's no longer those 500 employees, but it's 500 employees plus 200 contractors and 300 gig workers. So the type of employment has also changed. And what has happened is that because of the change in mindset, it's a change in the mindset of management. They are more receptive about new technologies and new evolutionary changes. And blockchain is actually one of those technologies that has caught the attention of the boardroom.
Yeah.
So I see a greater adoption and a faster adoption of this technology, Andres, in the real world now.
Yeah, no, those are great points. I love the notion of expanding the circle of influence. I would argue that also we should be adding perhaps, this call it fanatics, fans of your brand, fans of your company, influencers in social media kind of thing that, you really have no control over. But some people do have, like I would say, Elon Musk is either a great help or a great enemy to your brand if he likes you or not when he tweets, right? So you gotta, yeah.
He bought this NFT. He bought this, the carbon to blockchain and bitcoins. He's a fan of that, but because of the carbon footprint of a Bitcoin, he decided to stay away from it. But since that day, there has been a lot of visibility to the whole notion of sustainability and carbon footprint of the blockchain. And we, as Energy Blockchain Consortium, is working on at least 2 projects that allow us to reduce the footprint of a blockchain per se. So there's a lot of momentum in that area. There's a lot of interest, Andreas, with respect to not just blockchain, but a sustainable blockchain. And I people are very interested in that.
Yeah.
John? Tony, let me ask you this. When we look at blockchain, of course, it's the transparency. So we're all sitting down playing a game of poker, and everybody can look at everybody's hand. So therefore, transparency becomes one of the great means of technological change. It means that I know what you're doing, and you know what I'm doing. And as the blocks add up, there's a record for every card that we have played on the table. My question is, if you look at somebody like Elon, did he look at this, the transparency, a notion, have him to back off? So my question is there anything about blockchain, and it might be the transparency, that might slow this technology in developing?
You know, one of the biggest assets of blockchain is its transparency, right? The fact that the data on the ledger is immutable is actually revolutionary. It's not very obvious, but it's very revolutionary. If you look into take an ordinary industry, let's say pharmaceutical industry, the evolution of the COVID drug, for example, right? The coronavirus drug that we couldn't live without. The whole evolution of that drug discovery process needs to be recorded based upon FDA guidance. You have to record the clinic 1, 2, and 3 trials have to be recorded. Every word has to be recorded. Every document has to be recorded because FDA looks into those documentation for approval. Now, if you use every note, it's immutable. What that means is that because of immutability, nobody can fudge the records, and the trust comes because of the fact that it's immutable. So you have immutability as the obvious value. You have transparency because the transactions are visible to the stakeholders, and you also have a decentralized decision making, which means that the decisions are not made by one monolithic organization, but it can be decentralized through the process of consensus. So all participants can participate in the decision making. So I cannot usurp a functionality or software or a technology because I chose to. I cannot do that on the blockchain space. I have to drive it through consensus. So there's transparency, immutability, distribution, decentralization, which are the obvious values that blockchain offers, and therefore it cannot be fudged.
Right. Let me follow that with a question. I'm working with a company that combines blockchain with Duo. One of the things that enterprises do now, as you know better than me, we sign a lot of stuff online, quote unquote. And one of the things that blockchain, Tony, I think will allow us to do, not only will we have a written record, but we have a video record. So right now I'm working with a company that when I sign my Duo, then there's also a video made of me signing the Duo. And so I think if you look at how blockchain is moving, the application will go much farther than just the transparency in terms of increasing the number of blocks or the records, but it's going to be applied to so many other different things that allow us to get through the day, including coupling it with Duo.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Not only can blockchain store the data, but we have a use case that we are implementing right now where blockchain is also storing the transaction. Like the way you've described your example, not only are you storing the data, but you're also storing the video, right? Video is like the log of the transaction. So we are actually working on a use case where the transactions are logged, not from a video perspective, but from application perspective, like a SAP transaction or a Oracle transaction. So all of these transactions, some of them need to be recorded because of supply chain. Supply chain, as you know, is one of the biggest challenges in the industry. If you're able to use the blockchain to record these transactions, you have a kind of an unparalleled record of everything that occurred in the life of that particular transaction. So blockchain is now being used, John, like you are suggesting, in very creative ways of solving very critical problems that have not been solved before. And you know, the signing of the letters of where the needs of a record to be illustrated are now being logged. So yeah, we've got plenty of applications.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was going to ask you, Tony, real quick. Could you and Linda needs to unmute herself. She needs to talk. Could you explain for our listeners real quick blockchain, the levels of blockchain, just real quick?
We've had distributed computing technology for over 30 years. In other words, we've had systems where database is distributed. This is not new. We've had systems where applications are scattered all over the place. This is not new. What blockchain does is it allows you to not only distribute the database, but it allows you to decide on a business process, which we call consensus in the blockchain space, in a distributed model. What that means is that if you have a business process in the blockchain world, it's called a smart contract. So if you have a business process codified as a smart contract, that business process does not need to be executed by one entity. It is executed through the consensus of multiple parties. Therefore, one company cannot define a business process or have monopoly in this technology. You follow? If you had one company decide on a business process, if you had one company be the caretaker of a database, if you had one company that made all the decisions, that's not blockchain, because that's the last 30 years. Even though we had a distributed database,
Yep.
but the decision making was centralized. So what is evolutionary is that we still have the distributed environment, but what is revolutionary is that we never, ever had a way to make a decision in a decentralized, democratized way. So blockchain gives you the ability to create decisions on the blockchain in a decentralized manner so that we are able to agree on this decision. And once this decision has been made through the process of smart contract, that decision gets codified into the blockchain. And when it gets codified into the blockchain, it becomes a block. And when it becomes a block, a sequence of blocks are linked into a chain, and therefore we call it a blockchain. So blockchain is this decentralized, distributed computing environment where the data is stored in a cryptographic manner so that nobody can hack it, and the decision making is decentralized so that not one company is in charge, but multiple companies are participants in the ecosystem with the stake. So that's why blockchain is very revolutionary, because now you have the ability to create unbelievable number of applications that can be decentralized across the entire world, actually.
Right, and also real quick to finish, and then we'll go to Linda after this. And everybody who participates in a specific chain, in a specific network, has a copy of everything, right?
Yeah. So let's say that there are in the energy industry, you have an ISO, you have utility, you have different players, right? So let's say there are 15 players who are interested in participating in the energy ecosystem, right? But there are 1 million customers. All the 1 million customers are not interested in keeping copy of the database. That would make no sense, right? You probably have these 15 companies, one ISO, 16 utilities, 5 energy generation companies. So these 25, 30 companies may decide that they become the key stakeholders in the blockchain, and they can have their own node, and anything that one company does is visible to the other company. So there is no monopoly per se, but everybody has access to it. And of course, you can have the right governance so that not everybody can make changes to it willy-nilly. So there is proper governance in the process. But the idea is that this one big ecosystem of blockchain solution has key stakeholders who are assisting in the process of decision making versus just one company, basically.
Right. Linda?
Okay, Tony, we've been talking about blockchain for quite a long time now in the energy and utility business. And I'm wondering, what is the penetration? For instance, I know that blockchain, transactions such as energy trading can be recorded and settled almost instantly with no need for an intermediary. I'm less sure of where it works in the utility business, and maybe you'll be a little bit more specific about that. And also with new energy, with renewables, I can see that as being a really interesting area for penetration.
Absolutely, Linda. So let me answer the first question first, where I believe that there is definitely a lot of value in the any energy trading and risk management per se, because the blockchain will allow you to calculate, make very difficult calculations faster, quicker, cheaper, in a way that you're able to reduce the cost of intermediary, right? So that's all well and good. But I am from this industry. I live and breathe this industry. If you look into a typical ISO RTO, or if you look into a typical energy company, which is, let's say, a distribution utility, or you have a company that is that provides settlement services to a number of utilities, and you have a few in the US, they have created these systems in 10, 15, 20 years. So it's very difficult to replace these systems in a heartbeat, just because these technologies are very well embedded into the ecosystem and the back office of the utilities, right? So even though blockchain is a fantastic fit for these enterprise resource level applications, but right now, blockchain or any technology for that matter cannot willy-nilly replace these hardened back office systems. So in other words, yes, blockchain is right technology, but as a CIO or a CEO, I can't replace my back office systems in a heartbeat. I need to be able to have the time to do it methodically, right? Now, that doesn't mean that blockchain is not being used in this industry. On the contrary, blockchain is being used in this industry with new type of business processes that we haven't even seen up until now. I'll give you an example. In the whole energy industry, there is a huge opportunity to integrate renewables on the grid, right? We have the distributed energy resources such as solar, battery storage. You have EVSEs, which is EV chargers. They're all getting integrated into the last mile, right? You have a lot of different capabilities, including the connected home, being connected on the last mile. So utilities are all of a sudden finding themselves in a situation where they have to manage these assets which are on the last mile. Many of these assets are behind the meter. So how do you even manage these assets? So there's a huge, I would say, evolutionary thought process going on in the utility sector, all the way from ISO to the distributed utilities, as to how do we integrate these DER assets onto the grid. Guess what? Blockchain is a fantastic technology because it's a very natural fit. Why? Because blockchain is a distributed ledger, so it's got a distributed DNA. If you look into the DER, it's distributed energy resources. It's got a distributed DNA. So what you're finding is that blockchain technology is now being applied to register these DER assets, aggregate these DER assets, and put the DER's aggregated capacity onto the ISO market so that ISOs can consider this as a valid, viable capacity. And not only that, you are also finding that the distribution utilities are very interested in not only the aggregated assets, but also to look into these assets in a one by one manner, so that they can integrate them into the grid for the purposes of green energy. So blockchain is now being used to integrate these DER assets, to integrate the renewables, to do peer-to-peer transaction between users, to be able to provide sustainable solutions using this renewable energy, to provide renewable energy credits, to integrate carbon credits. I mean, there are these, I just told you like 8 use cases right off the bat. So these are the different use cases that are being used right now as we speak within these utilities using blockchain that we have never done before.
Yeah. John?
Yeah, well, I think this is good because what you're saying is you have an interaction of, and my next question is, how is the business community in terms of, let's say, contracting with IBM or the blockchain folks, how is the business community accepting the transparency? I mean, what we see is that when you sit around a board seat and we talk about interacting with other companies, and we talk about doing business with other companies, we talk about, in my world, we call that co-opetition. Co-opetition is when different companies interact with each other. And like you said, with the blockchain, no longer can one person control the process. My question is, if you put it on a ledger, how do you see the speed of adoption of blockchain in different industries? First, with the speed of adoption. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I'm finding, John, is that we have to not see this as a 1 or 0 answer. Think of this as, first of all, the boardroom and the CEO are wary of blockchain because of 2 reasons. One, it's a new technology, right? There is always this apprehension around new technology, what it's going to do. And there's been a lot of negative publicity around cryptocurrencies. So by the nature of this technology, there is an extra level of caution that the board and the CEO are exhibiting. That's number one, right off the bat, right? However, what we are witnessing is that management that is very perceptive, who understands the customer, are starting to adopt the blockchain technology in use cases where it has a very, very good, perfect fit. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you're an insurance company. I'm just making it up, right? Let's say you're the insurance company, you're the CEO of insurance company. And I'm going to give you an example from Nationwide, a real insurance company, right? This insurance company, Nationwide, is very interested in providing proof of insurance to their customers' customers, or their customers' partners, or to their customers, whoever, right? Now, traditionally, I would call up, an insurance company and say, can you give me some kind of a proof of insurance, or a binder, as we call it in the industry, right? Give me the binder. I want to prove it to my vendor that I have insurance from you. That whole process is very manual, right? And guess what? At the end of the day, what that proves is that I, as John Smith, have insurance company from XYZ company, and here is my coverage, right? That's what you get at the end of the day, a binder, right? So Nationwide is allowing you to offer these proof of insurances on the blockchain, so you can distribute your proof of insurance to your customers, partners, and vendors without going through the process of manual paper emailing and all that stuff, right? So that's one example where they are not changing their ERP system, but they are using it on the periphery to provide some functionality that they've been able to simplify and automate just to reduce their cost. So there's an operational efficiency, customer satisfaction, and lower cost as the reason why they're doing it, basically. So what you find is that the first set of applications are to improve the existing process, to reduce the cost, and to improve the efficiency of the process as the first set of applications which are hitting the road right now, basically.
Yeah, Linda, you have a follow-up?
No, just another question that's perfectly clear to me. How Tony, can blockchain networks be used to boost energy production? We're all talking about boosting energy production these days.
Yeah, you know what? I think the first thing we have to do is we have to reduce our reliance on fossil fuel, right? That's one thing. So if your question is, how can we elevate renewable energy and reduce fossil fuel, then I can give you that answer. But if your question is literally, how do I increase my fossil fuel production, then I can answer that as well. I was wondering, which one would you want me to address?
Both actually, because we're talking about natural gas being boosted in order to help Europe through this difficult time with Russia's war in Ukraine.
Yeah, so
and
I think
and the move to renewables.
Yeah, I'm actually writing an article right now that will be published fairly soon. It talks about how we can reduce our reliance on fossil fuel and increase the integration of renewable energy on the grid using blockchain. So I'm going to send you that article when I'm finished with it. But to answer that question right now, we need to figure out a way to reduce our dependency on fossil fuel. And that's only possible if we are able to rapidly integrate the renewables. The cost of the renewables has gone down. The cost of the battery storage has gone down. And we are now finding ourselves in having an opportunity where we can create electricity and store it during off-peak hours and use it during nighttime or other times when there is no wind or solar, right? So we already have the technology to integrate these renewables and use it during the off-peak hours when the sun and the wind is not there. I think we already have the technology. So the first thing is, let's try to find a way in integrate these renewables. And I think the way to integrate these renewables is if we can actually provide visibility to the sustainability or the price of carbon. We need to have some type of a mechanism by which the cost of doing renewable needs to be not only justified, but it should be incentivized. And we have to find ways to incentivize the use of renewable. And there are techniques available in the market to do that, such as carbon tax. But I'm not promoting that. What I'm saying is that we need some way to incentivize the use of renewable energy, whether it's lower prices or more incentives or some type of a way to reward the user. So we have to figure that out. And it is driven by two things. One, the technology, and second is the compliance and the regulatory policies. So that's one thing that
Tony,
we have to do.
Right. Tony, where does blockchain fit into all of that, though?
The way the blockchain fits into this is that the blockchain technology allows you to integrate the renewables rapidly and quickly with the example I gave you, number one. Number two, it can provide you with an incentive system that those who integrate the renewables or those who use the renewables can have a lower price point and better settlement cost and overall richer and more valuable experience. So in other words, when you switch on the electricity in your home, you flip the switch. You don't care if it's a green electron or a brown electron or a red electron. You don't care. You just need electricity. But if that electricity was driven by a lower cost renewable energy, that is where you're making a difference. So we need to find a way in which we can do that. And blockchain can provide you with a very relatively easy way to integrate the renewables with the example I gave you. You integrate the renewables, and how you do it? You do it in a way that you create a mechanism to register the asset. You create a mechanism in the blockchain to aggregate the asset. You take these aggregated assets and you give it to the ISO RTO to put it into the energy market, and then the energy market then sells it to the utility, and the utility sells it to you. It's a whole cycle, and blockchain can decentralize all of this because it can provide all the stakeholders to play in the ecosystem without the onus of manual entries of the data. Everything can be automated, and you can have a simplified experience and lower cost.
Right, cheaper.
Yes, it's possible. With blockchain, it's possible, but without blockchain, it's economically very difficult. Economically is what I'm saying, difficult, expensive.
All right, understood. Which utilities?
I think that would come down as we process. But go ahead.
Go ahead,
Yes,
Linda.
yes to John.
I was just
Linda,
saying,
go ahead.
Any examples of that you can mention of utilities that are first adopters of blockchain in this respect, that they're looking at it for that economic advantage?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I can tell you is that obviously I'm not privy to a lot of the work that is happening in the back office, right? But I do know there are efforts going on in Japan. I'm also chair of a group in Europe that has a number of utilities who are looking to do this. I know that my organization worked with one of the large ISOs here in the US in the DER integration and aggregation. There are the big utilities on the East Coast and the West Coast are actually working on it. They've got projects going on in the back office to integrate renewables using blockchain. I also know that many organizations like in Las Vegas and the Nevada area, they are looking to use blockchain technology to create the REC market. My company, as in the consortium I'm a chair of, is actually received funding from Arizona to create a sustainability platform. So there are a lot of efforts going on across the entire globe, from India to China to Japan to Europe, North America, here in the US, but also a lot in Canada. Actually, Ontario Energy OESO is very actively doing this. Ontario Energy Board is very actively looking into blockchain. So lots of work going on, Linda, across the globe. Many applications haven't hit the momentum of what you and I call production-enabled blockchain solution, but they are almost getting there. They've been in the pilot mode for the last 2 years, and in 2022 and 2023, we believe that a lot of them are going to release these applications in production mode.
That's fascinating.
Tony, real quick, a few things. The digital transformation, the digitalization, decentralization, decarbonization mega trends apply to cities, utilities, buildings, is driving all kinds of use cases. I wonder I wonder how many of these new models, new business solutions need blockchain to succeed or not. So for example, do you see a world of electric vehicles powering the grid without blockchain?
I think first of all, electrical vehicles are going to power the grid no matter whether the blockchain is there or not. But I can, if I was a betting man, I would bet 90% in favor of blockchain technology becoming integral to renewable energy, including EV charging. I'm already seeing it right now. It's you know why that's the case? It's not because of just the cryptocurrency and this sounds very exciting. It's because of economics. Period. You know, I'm a man of science and I believe in supply and demand. If the cost is low, eventually people are going to gravitate towards it, right? It's all about cost. It's what's in your wallet, literally. It's the money that talks, right? Economics drives everything. It's not the glitter and the glamour. At the end of the day, it's the economics. So blockchain economics is the most efficient we've ever designed, and that's going to drive the behavior, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Here's another follow-up real quick. So distributed energy resources, smart appliances, solar panels, it's mandated in California. Any home in California needs solar panels. Yeah, you have FERC Order 2222 that is pushing for aggregators to come in the market and take your energy in your house, my energy in my house, everybody else's, put it together, play it in the up market. Do you see that happening with or without blockchain?
I think it's going to happen first, and then blockchain is going to be added to it to make it more economical. Because right now you cannot have too many things working together. Only early adopters and visionaries are going to blend these two together. But you don't find the early adopters and visionaries both in the technology and business coming together very rapidly. Sometimes they come, sometimes they don't. So the change will occur. Andre, you and I know that change will occur, right? And the blockchain technology is going to accelerate it for sure. Whether it happens exactly at the same time or there's a lag of 1 year, I don't know, but it's going to happen. And of course, places like California and Berlin, Germany, France, UK, Japan, these are early indicators of where blockchain technology is being used very aggressively in integrating renewables into the grid, for sure.
Right.
So
Right.
we always, of course, the business model of California is different than Germany, different than Japan, but at the end of the day, they are all trying to do the same thing: decentralized environment, distributed energy resources, connected on the grid, not reducing the quality of the electricity. All of that requires good planning, good network configuration, solid economics, and good supply and demand. And that's what blockchain will help you do.
Right. Another quick follow-up. If you think about the impact of blockchain in other industries, do you see blockchain beyond digital currencies? Do you see blockchain really happening with NFTs? With that, is that really going to happen? The Dallas Cowboys just signed a deal with a company called blockchain.com to issue NFTs for all their athletes and everything they do. You can buy your tickets through an NFT. Do you see blockchain little by little basically replacing everything? Meaning, will there be a customer-driven blockchain that replaces Uber? Will there be a customer-based blockchain that replaces Airbnb? Would blockchain drive the gig economy to the next level?
Adria, the honest answer is yes, but I don't just want to say it because it sounds like this. Let me tell you why that's the case. Think of what an NFT is. Forget the Google hype. Forget everything else. You know what NFT is at the end of the day? Forget the definition of it. I don't want to talk about a non-fungible token, even though NFT is a non-fungible token. You know what actually NFT is? I'll tell you what NFT is. NFT is a way, let me repeat slowly. NFT is a way in which we can tell the world who the owner of a particular digital asset is. Just think about it. NFT is the way in which we can tell the world who the owner of a specific digital asset is. That is the one and the only objective of an NFT. So think of every use case that you can ever think of. If there is any time there's a use case where you have to prove that this particular thing, whether it's an art or a car or a house or a property or a ticket, think of anything that you have to have an ownership of somebody, you can actually put it on the NFT. Now, why that's the case? If you don't make it an NFT, just go with the assumption, I don't like this stupid NFT thing. Then you have to actually create a platform to create a ticketing system like Ticketmaster. Wouldn't you say so?
Yeah.
Then you have to create a platform to be able to sell art. Wouldn't you say so?
Yep.
So what I'm saying is, what the hell, man? Why do you have to recreate the wheel over and over and over and over again? You have this platform called NFT. Use it to define the digital ownership of an asset, so you don't have to create a Ticketmaster from scratch. So you don't have to create all of these platform from scratch, because we are in 2022, where this standard called NFT allows us to define the digital ownership of a product. That product could also be a digital asset, but it's nothing more than a product at the end of the day. That's why I believe that NFT is such a revolution, because it allows you to prove the identity of an owner of record in a digital media where it has not been possible to do up until now. That's why it's a revolution, and that's why it's going to replace many of these use cases that you talk about.
John?
Yeah, I think that's what you're saying is all of these process will help us to make better business models. That has been the theme of this program. We've always asked, how are new ideas and new technologies changing the business models? And what Andres asked you earlier was, did it speed it up? And the answer is yes. It really gave people a consideration to think about the ideas. And then you said, not only are there new business models, but people from different countries will work together. We will have an international relation of business, transparent, that we've never had before.
Right.
That is, I could work now with the Japanese, I can work with everyone. And then you said, the business models themselves got to be cheaper. We have to show these companies that what they're doing now is the new business model and the new value add is that it is cheaper. So I think that what I'm getting out of all of this is that blockchain is more than just a system of transparency. It's a system of new business models. And what I really got out of it was, it's a system that will allow the internationalization of new business models on a transparent way.
Yes, and yes, John, you really hit the nail on the head, because everybody talks about blockchain as this thing and this NFT as a thing. I think it is revolutionary because we've never had a way to prove the identity of an asset, physical or digital, up until the point when the NFT was invented. Wow, what a revolution! That's why it's a revolution, and that's why NFT is such a revolution. But there is also a phenomenal thinking around a token itself and a coin also. So the whole engineering of this blockchain, to me, is revolutionary when you put it all together. Even though it's evolutionary, like I told you, from a distributed computing model perspective, but it is revolutionary based upon the potential use cases that we can implement, because when all of these 4 or 5 pieces come together, it's magic, basically. And that's why it's not only a better way to do things, but it's pure economics at the end of the day that drives the capital market. And that's why this is going to be successful.
Right. Yes. And let us not forget about the military application. It's going to be huge.
Oh, military applications are huge because, you don't let me, and I cannot give you too much detail, but we are working with a military base, the logistics base for a Marine Corps. They are actually the back office for the front line, as you know. Marine Corps is the back office for the front line, right? And what they're doing is they're trying to create a sustainable ecosystem of even if the electricity went outside the base, they're still able to support their frontline in different countries while they're sitting in America. So they're trying to create a net zero footprint with a completely 100% resilient base. That's what the name of the game is. 100% resiliency is what they're looking for, not just from an energy perspective, but complete 100% resiliency from every dimension perspective. That's DoD's, one of the key missions of DoD nowadays. And actually, believe it or not, blockchain is a key part to that solution.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. No, this is fascinating. Tony, give me some sense of something. Yes or no, and then maybe a prediction. So a lot of people are, everybody's a music lover. Everybody knows the Spotify and Prime Music and Apple Music and all these things. But the first time we heard this, there was a protocol, the Napster. Remember Napster?
I think I'm having a little bit of audio problem.
Do you remember Napster? Napster.
Yeah. Napster. I know Napster.
So I've always said that if Napster would have come out with blockchain, it would have been game over. They would have controlled the world, right? The reason they got shut down is because they couldn't prove how many copies were being made to the royalty owners of the music, right?
Yep.
So clearly blockchain is going to happen. So here's the question. I've always thought that in a blockchain world, Oracle, SAP, ERPs, CRMs, on the energy side, DERMS, ADMS, GISs, everything needs to be written using blockchain technology. How long do you think this is going to take?
Okay, so knowing these companies really, really, really well, I think it's not going to happen for 5 years, but they're going to start integrating blockchain. They're already doing it. 2 years ago, they started integrating blockchain. All these companies, the ones you named, and that I know, they're already integrating blockchain into their platforms. But they are not going to replace their ERP system with a purely blockchain technology. That's going to take 3, 4, 5 years.
Got it. Lynn, do you have a follow-up?
Not a follow-up, but just something that I'm sort of interested in, which is how blockchain can be incorporated into verifiable eco-data reporting. As everyone talks about climate change, I see this as being a very useful thing in a kind of a hybrid smart contract system.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you said that word called hybrid smart contract system. That is a term that has been used a lot nowadays by many companies. And one company that comes to mind is called Chainlink. Chainlink is think of that as a token on top of the Ethereum blockchain. And they talk a lot about something called as an Oracle. It has nothing to do with the Oracle company, but think of the Oracle as an adapter between the off-chain and the on-chain that Linda is referring to. And that adapter allows you to inject the data from third parties into the blockchain. And that process of injecting the data from a third party into the blockchain is the foundation for a sustainable application, because you need to bring data from multiple sources. And you need to have the ability to enter the data from companies. So when they enter the data about their sustainability metrics, the blockchain can actually prove how good they are based on their pathway to sustainability. For example, they could use the SBTi standard, which is the space target standard, create a pathway. They can use the Oracle, not the company, the Oracle adapter from the off-chain to the on-chain to put the data and prove that they are who they are, and they did what they did. So we can give a report card from the blockchain about their sustainability metrics through this capability, by the way. So Linda, great example, and this is the use case which, incidentally, my organization and members of our organization are working on a particular use case in this area. This particular use case, basically.
Thank you, Tony. That's fascinating.
Yeah, this is a very good question, because the word a hybrid smart contract is an important word in that, because you're not only talking about a smart contract on the blockchain, but it's a hybrid smart contract that allows you to inject the data from third parties into the blockchain, basically.
Very nice, very nice. John, any other follow-ups?
I think it's fascinating. What's fascinating to me is how a single technology, what has evolved, will change so many business models. You know, it's almost equivalent, but not as quite as when I remember when people would say, I don't need a web page for my business. People would say, well, I'm not sure. I've spoken to a lot of people. I don't understand the blockchain. And the web page made things much more efficient. It created new business models of delivery. It created things like eBay and those kind of things. And I think that blockchain, and it's not in its infancy now, but it certainly has been around. But it is the evolutionary attachment, if you will, to how we do business in the future.
Yeah, my last question, Tony, would be: is there a relationship between blockchain and Web 3.0?
Yes, there is a direct relationship between the Web 3.0 and blockchain. I think blockchain powers Web 3.0. Without blockchain, it'll be difficult to make Web 3 happen.
Okay.
Fascinating. Thank you very much, Tony. We're so happy to have you. So lucky to have you. We will be sending this recording out as we're done. Much appreciated. All the best. Digital 360 Summit is coming up in September. We're going to ask you to come and join us. And thanks again to Texas State for sponsoring our Digital Roundtable. Any parting thoughts, Tony?
No, I think I'm glad that Andre, you invited me. I'm so happy to be on this platform, and look forward to seeing you, if not earlier, then definitely in September.
Absolutely. Yeah, and for those of you, the Utility Telecom Council is coming up in Oklahoma City in mid-May, Distributech in Dallas in late May. We'll see you there probably. Linda, any parting thoughts?
I think that the conversation has been so fascinating and valuable. We can really see now that, blockchain isn't just a far out idea, but the applications are there and it is being adopted, and it should be adopted. It's important for our society going forward.
Absolutely. John?
I think it was a wonderful discussion. I enjoyed the discussion. And Tony, keep doing great things. And as you know, it takes a lot of brain power to bring new business models, and more importantly, to bring industry to the new business models.
Very well
Thank
said.
you, Tony. John, take us away.
In the early morning rain, with $1 in my hand, with an aching in my heart, and my pockets full of sand. I'm a long way from home, and I miss my loved one so. I'm in the early morning rain, no place to go.
All right.
Okay.
Night.
All right,
Nice.
Tony, it was wonderful.
Thank
Okay,
you,
Tony, I'm going to a
everybody.
meeting. I'm
We're
going
going
to
to stop recording now. We're going to stop recording now, and we're off. We're off.